Hello once again to all of you on India Sports News. I am honored to have with me former India spinner and Border Gavaskar Trophy winner Nilesh Kulkarni with us to analyze what happened at the VCS Stadium in Nagpur on this day, Saturday, which was the third day of the Test match. Nilesh, can you believe what has happened at the VCS Stadium in Nagpur?
Well, partially I had predicted this because when the questions were asked by you only, I had suggested that 150 is going to be good enough, but I think India managed to score 200 plus runs. And I think largely that is due to the way Jadeja and Axar batted yesterday and today. I think a lot of Australian media created a hype around it that the pitch and the conditions are not conducive. And when you see lower middle order of Indian team and then partially tail with Mohammad Shami having great partnerships, there are no great demons. It's just a slow and low wicket where Australian batters, barring Labuschagne and Steve Smith, have not managed to adapt to and adjust to the conditions which are offered on them.
And the way Axar batted, he carried on his good form that he showed in Bangladesh as well. He's not got that many chances in Test cricket away from India, but in India or in India-like conditions, like in Bangladesh, he has shown us that he should be the first name to be penciled in alongside Ashwin and Jadeja.
Well, if three spinners come in, I had suggested before the test match started also that Akshar should play. Oh, the only reason because he's got a great track record in India. He knows how to get fifer on a slow and a low on a turning tracks as well. So I think that itself will. I think they've just sealed the game. Mohammad Shami has taken a wicket, it seems. So I think Axar deserves a chance purely on the merit of what he has achieved when he played in India and in absence of Ravindra Jadeja when he was injured. So I think there's not two ways about not having Ashwin in the squad.
And the
Sorry, Axar
depth
in the squad.
and the depth that India had. It seems odd, but India seems to have the luxury that very few sides have these days. With your three main spinners also being very good all rounders, that gives a lot of depth to the lineup. Could India be tempted in playing a lesser batter in the next Test match, considering the depth that these three all rounders provide?
Not needed. I think they've got good. They're going with a five frontline bowler. That itself is a great luxury to have. When you're going into a test match with five frontline bowlers, and out of those three bowlers are your main all rounders. One of them have got five test hundreds. So that adds a lot of stability, and I think it's a good thing that Rohit Sharma is into this situation. Make no mistake, we are slightly undermining the effort Rohit Sharma did as a captain, not only marshalling his resources but leading from the front as a batter as well.
And as a lower order batter, did you enjoy Mohammad Shami's batting as well?
Absolutely. I think, see, those critical key partnership with Axar Patel was very, very important for India to have this kind of solid base and the freedom to bowlers to go out and at least have those 50 runs as an add-on to their repertoire in terms of even if you leak 5, 10 more runs, going for the wicket, you still have an advantage. I think that's a great sign to see. In fact, more so the way Mohammad Shami and Siraj applied when they were batting on this condition was a great sign for me to see.
And Nilesh, when Australia came out to bat, a lot was expected from them that, having seen India's tail wag, India's lower order bat, they would learn from that. But they seem to be just missing the line.
Well, I think the responsibility lies with two veterans, David Warner and Steve Smith too, because they've had multiple series in India, partially Pat Cummins and Labuschagne, who visited India in the past, to get those players who probably are new to these conditions, in terms of. So I'm actually surprised to see the way the shot selection was for Australian batters. For me, they're not learning from what India showed them how to do it. I think that's one area which I feel the Australian think tank will need to apply and go back to their drawing board in terms of how they need to apply themselves in the remaining three test matches.
And the way Ashwin bowled in the second innings, he seemed to be running away with the match. Uh, just can't seem to figure out how to play Ashwin on Indian pitches. Be it any side, Ashwin, Jadeja, they're a lethal combination.
True, and more so, you know what? Ashwin was hungry for that kind of an opportunity. With the wicket on offer, two left-handers batting, it was an obvious choice for Rohit Sharma to make and get Ashwin to bowl and open the bowling because with the new ball, there's always going to be a bounce and a spin and the extra advantage to a spinner. And me being a spinner, I'm just relating to that. If I get the chance to bowl with the new ball, I'd love to do it on a turning track like this.
And Jadeja again in the second innings also bowled well. The batters just didn't seem to have any clue about Jadeja as well.
I think the problem with them is they're not applying themselves. They're not just chasing the ball rather than playing the line. You know, that's a fundamental difference technically. Whereas the only gap is the way Indian lower middle order batted and applied themselves playing the line and waiting for the loose ball or the opportunity to score runs. This is something which is classic, where the Australian batters, except to a large extent Labuschagne and Steve Smith, who applied themselves to play the line, and they were partially successful.
And when you see that the finishing touches in the match was provided by Mohammad Shami, it tells you about the overall domination that India had in this Test match.
Absolutely. I think it's a classic way of having the right balance, right combination. And by the way, Bumrah is not playing.
Hmm, yeah, absolutely.
So and they're not missing Bumrah.
Yeah,
So that itself speaks volume in terms of how the backup and add-on these you can't call them backup, they're mainstream, but you know, you're not missing Bumrah. That itself make a big statement.
and going into the next Test match in Delhi, we now have additional 2 days for both sides. India can put their feet up. Australia have a lot more thinking to do. If you are in the Australian camp, what changes would you make in the lineup?
So I think Head missing in this lineup was a big surprise to me. You know, he's come with the tons of runs and he's not part of this as a batting unit. I don't think they need to change too much into their bowling unit. Maybe a variation of a left armer or a left armer can be added into their flexibility because Pat Cummins can bat deep. He can, you know, you can rely on him to give you that extra advantage in this situation. So he can bat deep. So they may require five frontline bowlers as a strategy also because Alex Carey need to take up more responsibility not only as a keeper but with the bat as well.
And if you are in the Indian camp, if you are your good friend Rahul Dravid, what changes, if at all, would you make for the second Test match? Unless, of course, there are any injuries. Would you make any change at all?
I don't think so. I don't think so. See, I again say it's unfortunate that Shubman Gill will miss out because you cannot drop once you play KL Rahul and he's not successful. You still need to give him one more opportunity. They will go ahead with that, and that's why I said unfortunately, Shubman Gill will have to miss out. I don't think we should change any combination in this particular situation when you're doing well. And you finish the game in 2.5 days. Some of the Australians can think of going to the wildlife, which is close to Nagpur as well.
Well, yeah, of course, there are a lot of tiger reserves close by. They can spend time going there. But once again, laboring on the point of KL Rahul, there's been a lot of criticism about him being given a long rope. How much of it is fair criticism, according to you?
See, partially they still back him. They still want him purely because of the sheer talent he has. I think it's KL's responsibility now to live up to those expectations and start delivering because there's somebody else who's knocking the door and who's scoring big hundreds. So I think there's a pressure on KL Rahul also to make sure he delivers. There's no doubt about his ability and the talent he has. It's about the delivering the expectations because you know that's one area where KL Rahul needs to start living up to the expectations. Even the team management who believe in his talent. I think one of the areas where I read some of the Indian captains who made a statement that sometimes you have to make hard calls, and there have been incidences where the vice captain has been dropped purely because of the forms and other areas. So Maybe if KL Rahul, he should get one more chance, but if he's not there, I think Shubman Gill should walk in, and he's always already knocking the doors.
Here's a stat for you. Since 2013, in Test cricket at home, India's played 43 Test matches. Now they have won 35 of the 43 Test matches and have lost just two of those Test matches. It just underlines this particular decade, this particular lot of cricketers. They have just dominated on Indian soil in Test cricket.
Sheer dominance, and large credit has to go to Ashwin and Jadeja duo, because people will talk about how the batters dominated, how batters evolved. But for me, if you take 20 wickets in a test match, you have more chance of winning a test match, and that's largely because I think these duo has taken more than 250 wickets together. Some stats I was reading this morning, and I'm like, this is insane. The kind of combination on Indian soil, if they've managed to put up a show like this, that makes a good statement in terms of if you have to win a match, you have to take 20 wickets. And invariably, if you see more deep into those stats, you might find that they've finished most of those matches in 3.5 days at max. And that itself is a huge statement.
That's a telling statement from you, Nilesh. And having said that, can Australia make a comeback in this series, in your view,
Well, it
considering the
looks
numbers that you just spoke about?
if Manas Labuschagne and Steve Smith pull up some miracles as a batter, I don't see because see it's always going to be India bowlers versus Australia batters. India batters will always find a way to get things going because they know these conditions back of their hand. But I think if Australian batters they need to introspect and try and find a way to overcome Indian bowlers duo Ashwin and Jadeja, and then add to it Axar Patel. Unless they manage to do that, and make no mistake, Mohammad Shami and Siraj looked really good this morning when they actually bowled nagging length, whereas the only line of hope was seen in the second spell by Pat Cummins, who actually showed the kind of line and length he needs to bowl, and he got uh, Rohit Sharma out in that spell. So I think they have lots to go back to their drawing board to work on a strategy. I think one area where I personally feel Nathan Lyon needs to start taking up a leadership role differently because he's got 400 plus test wickets. He's the one who's coming up with the experience, and if he manages to deliver those things, then only Australia have a good chance.
On that ominous note, Nilesh, thanks a lot for joining us on India Sports News. We hope to catch you before the second test match in Delhi and also during the second test match and right through this Border Gavaskar Trophy. Thanks a lot for your time. We'll catch up again and look ahead to the second test match very soon.
Thank you, Chandresh, for having me.